Right, hello everybody, welcome to another video on the channel. This is going to be a spotlight overview. If you don't know already, Super Skrull and as well as Psycho Man will probably have their abilities on the delightful forum under the spotlight section, but I just want to look over this, see these new champions, their abilities and how they play out. We have covered the source material of the abilities. Now let's look over champions in any case and see whether they might have any kind of practical effects to the game. So, constantly receiving cosmic energy from the Super Skrull homeworld. That's a very good tie into the comic book story arc. This means every 1 second he gains either a Fury buff or an Armor Up buff based on his next action as an offensive, attacks or defensive, blocks or strucks. Strucks? Anyway, okay, so yeah, I like that mechanic. It means that the gaining of buffs is really good. That's going to be a really good counter to the likes of Buffed Up. Once Super Skrull gains 5 of these buffs, he enters his overload state. His buffs unpause, but he gains additional buffs based on the number of Fury armor up buffs he has as he overloads. The second layer of buffs rotation comes from using special attacks converting Fury into armor up or armor into Fury. I like armor into Fury personally, but it depends if you've got something where you need to play in a more defensive light based on interaction, allowing him to carry some of his buffs between overload cycles. Finally, Super Skrull is constantly attempting to invade the mind of the opponents with his Hypnotic Gaze, allowing him and the ability to periodically falter his target and make them more vulnerable to energy damage. So that seems pretty good, and that seems like an alright mechanic. It will just be a case of what's next? Well, it looks like the Incinerate or energy damage increase is going to be very important for high Incinerate debuff damage. Putting his Human Torch-like flames to good use, Super Skrull gets a large portion of damage from his Incinerates left, letting him largely ignore the opponent's armor. So that again plays into what we just read and how that will play into effect. Also, this is where the champion gets the little nod. So he gets the nod from the Incinerate damage side of things, and also the immunity and the shock immunity and stuff like that from his Human Torch capabilities, and as well the immunities from Thing, and just what he can withstand with critical resistance, block penetration with his Furies. There's going to be some offensive and defensive properties which he takes in all kind of inspiration from Fantastic Four, because that's where a lot of his powers are replicated from. Now this Hypnotic Gaze debuff does interest me because it's got elements of like Missing, which I think is more playing into that Invisible Woman side of things, and especially when it goes down the line with the falter failing and as well this energy vulnerability debuff, reducing energy resist. Right, that can play massively into this damage aspect of the Incinerates and any kind of energy damage that Super Skrull might deliver out. Right, let's have a look at the more interesting thing, like this Cosmic Energy Receptors buff. Every 1 second, Super Skrull reaches full charge, and his next action creates a buff resetting the charge. This charge is not affected by ability accuracy. Landing a hit or striking a block converts to a Fury buff, increasing attack by 314. So I think that's something that would be quite cool, just hitting to blocks, or maybe landing a hit is a bit better for ramping up damage and taking down the percentage of health rather than hitting into blocks. But, you know, you do you at the end of the day. Being struck by or blocking an attack converts an armor up buff, increasing armor by 400. 5 of these buffs can be maintained at a time, so it gives you the kind of extent of what you have. The developer says this is the mechanic that you'll play around most when using Super Skrull. Time your attacks to build Fury or block to gain armor and buffs. By controlling what buffs you build here, you'll be able to control what extra buffs you get when you overload. And this is the point where things get spicy for this champion, which is all Cosmic Energy Receptor buffs are removed when overload ends. Where it fails to trigger, Skrull gains an additional buff based on the armor up or Fury up buffs active when he enters overload. So you can get a Vigilance buff, you can get an Unblockable buff, which I tell you what, the Unblockable buff is going to be increasingly fun to ramp up damage. But it's not going to be the be all and end all, because it will be about the Furies. 4 Fury buffs gain an undetermined debuff, 15 seconds granting unblockable to any hit which the opponent auto blocks. Kind of important. But 8 Fury buffs gain a Nova Fist buff for 15 seconds, granting 100% chance to incinerate all attacks, dealing 1000 370, this is depending on rarity, energy damage over 1.5 seconds, removing perfect block chance and reducing block proficiency by 50%. So it will be a case of like how you choose to play the champion. Do you want to gain those more armor up buffs, and will it be better to do the fury buffs? Will it be a case of damage ramp up? You know, that'll be the key thing as well. How many hits you can get on the enemy in 15 seconds to like how you scale into it. Will special attacks have multiple hits, and every hit will be like a Nova Fist hitting, so therefore will be energy damage per tick. You know, those are going to be key things that will be exciting to find out where this champion rolls more with. The damage output with the Fury buffs, or the switch over with the Overload and the amount of energy-based damage one can do, especially if you've got that energy vulnerability debuff on. Is that going to be part of the big ramp up? Now, when it comes to the special attacks, these look pretty fun, especially from the point of this can help towards the converting up to 5 Fury buffs into armor up buffs, which is going to be important for you building up that Overload if you want to, you know, pursue that kind of direction there. But look, you know, the other stuff is quite cool. Cannot miss or be auto-blocked, handy against very specific champions that will miss, you know, Ghost. I think it's as well Invisible Woman, auto block like MODOK. So yeah, there's definite options there for usage. And then SP2 on activation, convert to fight, into Fury, increasing attack. So it's the armor to Fury on the SP2, so that's stipulate there. Each hit has 100% chance to cause Incinerate, and that's a nice amount of energy damage, especially if you're in a different kind of mode. If you're in the Overload mode and you're firing from SP2 and you're doing a Nova hits, man, that's going to be very, very nice. And as well, a non-stacking aptitude buff with the SP3. So man, that could be really cool. Developers' note on this one is that Super Skrull's SP3 is most useful in longer fights where aptitude provides more value. The longer you have it for, and the stun lets you follow up immediately afterwards. So yeah, as soon as you're out of the SP3, go forward and smack a load of damage. But what now of his signature ability? Well, it looks like this is a gain of a power gain buff, granting 7.1% of a bar of power per second. Man, okay, like this is cool for ramping up and getting towards like damage very quickly. You got, say you go on Overload and you're like, as I said about that idea that you go SP2 for the Incinerate damage, or you get that vulnerability debuff, you go SP2, or even go SP3, and it's just like, it's just an incredible nice build up that you can do to kind of get in Overload and then do a load of damage. Man, that's actually quite nice. Especially because he's cosmic and you get those kind of vibes of getting like cosmic specific nodes. I mean, if they didn't change Cavalier around, I'm sure that this would be kind of really handy for the kind of the boost, and you get an aptitude really quickly. But yeah, it's like a Hyperion meets the Fantastic Four. It's got that kind of like vibe to it, really. Now, when it comes to synergies, there's not really much going on to a degree, right? And that degree is like Iron Fist gets an opportunity for some armor break debuffs, which helps towards the nullifying. When it comes to Super Skrull, each time you activate Fury buff, there's a 100% chance to place an armor break on the opponent, lasting for 4 seconds, reducing armor by 150. Stacks 5 times. That's pretty cool, especially for interactions with Variant 6. With that, that's actually kind of nice. There's something with Doom, but it doesn't really affect Doom in any kind of way. It just means you start with a Vigilance buff with a Super Skrull. And there's loads of little helpful things for the various Fantastic Fours. And look, you know, people play a Fantastic Four a lot of the time. More so with Human Torch, a little bit with Thing, a little bit with Mr. Fantastic. And there's some stuff there to kind of like help out unique with Human Torch, Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic. So you get stuff like, well, this last hit of Special Attack 2 grants a Fury buff for 6 seconds, increasing attack by 15%. You know, that's great for kind of like Human Torch's ramp up will be just absolutely insane. Fury as well, going into that stun, man, that's very, very nice. But yeah, there's other stuff there with Human Torch, Mr. Fantastic, yeah, other synergy members, block proficiency, increase that. Yeah, just again, loads of like stuff, helpful stuff and things like that. It's all good. It's all helpful things. We'll go over this in more detail. If you want to check it out, the links will be in the description to the forums. There's probably going to be the spotlights live as of now. So yeah, that's just been a little bit overview of Super Skrull. Yeah, my kind of quick overview of this is there's a lot of damage output potential. It is very much like a Hyperion meets the Fantastic Four. Easy rotations and build up, Fury. There's other buffs that are really going to make him handy for things like buffed up and other types of interactions. And I can see him being used in a lot of content, especially as a normal cosmic that builds things like armor, Furies. He's going to be able to damage output pretty well. And as well, I can't wait to see what this vulnerability for energy damage is like and the extent of damage output that you can do, especially going into Overload. And as I said, getting that Nova Fist and the extent of damage that can then do with it. But yeah, that has been the video. Thank you very much for watching. Please check out some other content over here and as well Rich's Realm, which is over there. And I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye for now.